go. Thank you, Miss Robot Lady. Welcome to the Noise Brigade. I am Bobby. He is Tom. And today we're going to talk about the XFL. Not just the first version, not just the second version, but the upcoming third version as well. Tom, how the hell are you?
I'm doing just fine, my friend. You threw this one out to do the XFL, and I thought that was really cool because, and we'll talk about, like you said, all three iterations of it. But yeah, it's one of those things that I think could have really been something initially, and the second time, and maybe third time's a charm.
Well, I'm hoping that the third time with the backing, the person backing it, and we'll get into it. I don't think it's any big state secret, but we'll hold that until we get to it.
Right. And we'll talk about the successes and failures of the first and second go arounds too. Because there are some, legacy type things that carried through to the NFL even.
Yeah,
And then just some really interesting players and notes that, not just out of the first one, but the second one too. And hopefully we can, see some fun things that I think you and I both saw with the second version kind of rekindled here in the third version, and hopefully we can kind of just catch lightning in a bottle and go with it.
yeah, absolutely. And I think if there's any time, if there's any kind of appetite for this, it would be now. Now the new one, and we'll get into it. It's not starting for a little bit, but I think it's going to be very interesting when it comes back. And but we're getting way ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the original, the XFL version 1.0. What was your biggest memory from it?
Anytime I hear the original version of the XFL, the first thought that pops in my head is he hate me. I mean,
You're not wrong.
how can you not have that in your head? And not just because he ended up playing with the Eagles,
Right.
but seriously, that has to be the big one. But really, the other big thing for me, and really, the launch year was 2001, and at that time, if you're unfamiliar with it, the wrestling industry kind of uh, came together, if you will. Vince's WWF had bought WCW and also had taken and acquired ECW, all in a stretch of a few months there in early 2001. However, it was also the first year that, well, the launch year of the XFL. So my big kind of takeaway was Vince conquers wrestling the same year he launches the XFL. And did it last? Let's find out. So, what about you? What were your big takeaways on what's your initial thoughts when you hear it?
So it made me like a Texas team, which I did not like, because I hate Texas. But or actually, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it didn't. So Stone Cold's team, was it Vegas or was it San Antonio?
I believe it was the Las Vegas Outlaws.
There we go. Okay, cool. So I still don't like it. I still don't
Yeah,
like
there
a
were
Texas
there
team.
were no Texas teams in the first iteration.
So then what I'll say is, my initial, and what I remember is, like you said, he hate me, Rod Smart, the nicknames on the back. Um, I'll always remember sitting in the living room of my parents' house watching the initial primetime game, and I'm pretty sure it was the first game that was played, and the Outlaws were playing, and I don't remember who they were playing, but Stone Cold was there, and I remember him in the jersey, and I remember the opening kickoff, and instead of a coin toss, they did a scrum like in rugby, but it was only one on one, and it was just. I remember being like, man, I really want this to be cool. I really want to like this. And then watching it and just not being invested in it at all. And I just couldn't put my finger on it, but I was not enjoying watching it.
Yeah. I no, I completely agree. And you made that comment too about the rugby like scrum for the ball, except the fact being one on one instead of the traditional coin toss. Um, that I felt the same exact way. I thought this was something that was unique for American football. I thought it was going to be really cool, and it turns out not every idea that you put on paper translates well to the field.
Right.
And
I
that was
mean,
one of
and
them.
to that point, the football, the football looked undeniably cool.
Yes,
It
it
was
did.
a black football with a red X and silver stripes. And I remember selling them at Dick's Sporting Goods because I was working there at the time. And I just, I couldn't picture, and I still can't picture trying to catch that at a night game against a black sky, trying to pick up a black football as a receiver or even a defensive back or anything. Because I mean, I've caught footballs at night and it's already hard enough. Trying to do it with a black football? Hell no. There's Why are you making it that much? I mean, I get it because let's face it, the XFL was a distillation of every quote unquote extreme thing from the 90s and 2000s. So I had I'd written a little note here. It was like Jenkos mixed with new metal, mixed with bleached hair, mixed with shit. And the one thing I forgot to throw in there was Creed. Um, you know, it was they were trying so hard to be this new edgy NFL because that's what, this was the tail end of the Attitude Era. And they were still, WWF at the time, or yeah, they were still WWF at the time.
Yeah.
Um, Vince was trying to push hard for that 18 to 35 demographic. And the next logical extension of that is an extreme football league, which that's in case, you dear listeners didn't know that, that's why it was called the XFL. So it was just they tried too much too hard to make it different from the NFL. And there was a lot that fell flat, but like you said, there was a lot that actually has managed to weave its way further into football.
Yeah, you made a comment, and I want to. I'll read. I thought this was really cool. So you made a comment about the camera all over the field or over the field, and which kind of looking back and forth, the sky cam, if you will, it was not first used in the XFL, but it was popularized in the XFL, in my opinion. And there was an interesting note though. The XFL kind of folded, and the Skycam was then adopted by the NFL's broadcasters. And obviously, we all know how popular that's come in use. But I thought this was kind of cool, noting some of the camera stuff. Is the NBC in particular switched back to the XFL camera angles in 2017 when traditional cameras were too far away to cut through thick fog and smoke on some of the Sunday night football games that year. That part's cool enough, but then the response on that was so positive that the network opted to use two of its Thursday night football games to experiment with intentionally broadcasting most of the game through that angle. So it's cool that all those years later, they kind of were like, you know what? And obviously NBC in particular, because they were the 50-50 partner, so they kind of had this in their back pocket already. And I think that is a nice little legacy note, is that yeah, they may not have been the first, but they've definitely popularized it enough to where the NFL was like, you know what, we can use this. And boy, have they ever, because I think every single game I turn on, there's some insane use of the sky cam, and they're showing how different plays are being run, or hey, how about that, this is the difference with this RPO and all this stuff, and it's you know made possible by the sky cam. It's pretty cool.
Right. And I always call it, wow. You hear my voice crack on that? I guess we really are back in the 90s. Um, I always called it the Madden cam, and I've never really enjoyed it, which is funny as much as I play 2K, which uses the exact same camera, I've never enjoyed it for watching football. Now I prefer it to the side scrolling, like we watch football, which is Tecmo Super Bowl style. But I've never really liked the behind the quarterback thing. Just like I don't like when in the NHL, the NHL has adopted that too from time to time, where they'll do the behind the skater camera. And I don't really like that too much. It's cool for replays when you're watching a great save or like a check in the corner or something like that. But I hate it for live action. I much prefer the horizontal screen to the vertical.
Right. Yeah. And I think that goes with a lot of things. I know, obviously XFL was, half by the WWE, and, they had tried different things over the years, with like putting the cameras in the ring posts and, those sorts of things. And, yeah, does it make for a cool picture or something here and there? It does. But at the end of the day, you kind of like watching that traditional hard camera, you know, that's what you're used to.
Right.
But the thing I will say too, and you made a note too, and you've already talked about it, and we've said this with He Hate Me, the jersey nicknames. And I know you were not a fan.
No. And I'm looking through your list here, that the one you sent to me. And good God, some of these are fantastic. Chuck Wagon,
Yes, Chuck
uh,
Wagon.
the Asian cornerback or defensive back named Samurai. Like I feel like at least he was Asian. Like Death Blow. I mean, some of these sound like names that Vince would make like wrestlers use.
Oh yeah, yeah, like the one named Tater.
Yeah.
All I could think of was Festus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh no, dude. Absolutely. I mean, we have the truth, so there's our truth represented. Um, D-Day, Big Merc, who looks like now. So, all right. So let me describe this picture to you. So, Big Merc, and well, no, I guess that's probably not him considering he's holding a beer. But okay, so this dude, this dude that they have pictured for Big Merc is wearing a homemade number 69 jersey and wearing what can only be described as what looks like a clan, like like half of a clan mask. So he's got, I guess it's a cone or something on top of his head. It's orange and it has like the cloth that comes down off of the cone and it goes just over his eyes and around his head. So the nose is sticking out and it's got eye holes. I really, it's amazing. And it looks like he might have a cape on too. Like, I don't know what the hell this guy was and why, but I'm glad they put his picture in this, even though it wasn't the dude. I mean, like I said, I can't. Maybe it was. Maybe this is Ron Merkerson of the New York, New Jersey Hitmen. But he's wearing a jersey that says Rage on it. So I'm not thinking he is.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. My actual knowledge of knowing uh, that had to be a fan, right?
I would have to imagine. I mean, because I'm looking at this one where this dude's name was Super C. So, shout out to Super Contra for the Super NES. And the picture with it has somebody with Austin on the back of their jersey and then shows the previously mentioned Rod Smart with He Hate Me on the back of his jersey. So I'm thinking they didn't show. And obviously, okay, so Big Daddy is just is a picture of two XFL footballs. So I'm assuming that they're not just showing the players.
No, no. The funny thing though, what I liked about this is it's an old Fox Sports article, but like going back to Big Merc, they have the sounds like things on some of these, actually on all of them, and his is Big Merc Call of Duty expansion map with only grenade launchers.
There you go, Chronic Y2K1. So sounds like the file you downloaded on LimeWire that was supposed to be the new Dr. Dre album.
Yeah, it's so good.
So yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. And I mean, looking back, you know what? It added a dimension of, personality to the league and made you maybe say, oh, you know what? I don't really have any favorites. Well, this guy's got a cool nickname on the back of his jersey. So I like that dude. Like, I can't tell you how many people fell in love with Rod Smart after seeing He Hate Me.
Oh yeah, yeah. And here's the thing. you know, whether whatever the however controversial that was having those on there, and especially whatever he had on there with "He Hate Me," you know what? I remember him.
Yeah.
And I would remember him for that more so than his time with the Panthers, the Eagles, or wherever else he played in the NFL. Um, Seriously, I mean that's simple as that.
Yeah.
And speaking of him, like some other notable players, the interesting thing with him, XFL, if I read correctly, had a draft of like 400 plus players, and he was taken number 357th, which is pretty remarkable considering how popular he ended up getting.
Yeah.
This one surprised me. This is, obviously probably the most famous, notable player that came out of that first iteration of the XFL is Tommy Maddox. He ended up being the XFL League MVP, and obviously he ended up with Pittsburgh Steelers. Later on, he led them to the playoffs. But this was interesting, and I still don't know because I've looked over several websites to try to figure this out. And it's hard because there's not a whole lot of information on these things. In fact, from what I gather, like the entire XFL draft thing that's even out there online isn't even complete. I could be wrong in saying that, but it's interesting. But so for Tommy Maddox, from what I understand, was not even taken in the XFL draft. He ended up being signed by the Los Angeles Extreme just based solely on his experience.
Hmm.
But the funny thing is that he beat Scott Milanovich for the starting quarterback position, even though Scott was the person taken number 1 overall in the XFL draft.
Which shows you exactly what kind of a crapshoot it was.
Exactly.
That's crazy, though. That's absolutely crazy.
I had no idea. I read that tonight and was like, wow, that's insane. But then, of course, it made a lot of sense afterward.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny, too, to just circle back to Rod Smart real quick. So, and actually Tommy Maddox, they're both in NFL 2K5.
Yeah, it's funny, dude. It's funny you say that because I was trying to find anybody that was in like Tecmo Super Bowl that would have been in that 2001 XFL, and I'm sure there's somebody, but I could not find anybody.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see because it's funny. There's actually, I think, what is there, like maybe 3 or 4 people who were in Tecmo Super Bowl and in 2K5.
Yeah, and that makes sense because they're 14 years apart. So probably a couple kickers and a punter and someone
Yeah,
else.
yeah. It was like I think Morton Anderson.
Anderson, yeah, he played for like 58 years.
I think Jeff Fiegels and
Yeah,
Sean Landetta.
Yep, 2 punters.
Yeah.
Kicker,
So, I can't imagine there's any actual position players. It's not like Tom Brady was playing back then.
No, I was looking at like some of the higher end drafted, like Vaughn Dunbar was drafted high in the XFL draft, and he was taken in like the 92 NFL draft, so he would have missed out. But I went on some other ones. Like here's another one. This was interesting too. Another notable player, Jim Druckenmiller, who shows up on that list that we just talked about as a nickname on his back of his jersey as Druck. And I'm only going to list him as notable because he was drafted in the first round in the 97 NFL draft to be the successor to Steve Young.
Right.
Which is insane because that certainly didn't work out.
Right, exactly. And I'll always remember him because I always thought his name, and I still, when I say his name, I don't say Druckenmiller, I say Drunkenmiller because that's what I thought it was for the longest time. I thought his name was Jim Drunkenmiller, and I was like, oh yeah, Jim Drunkenmiller. And people are like, no, you idiot. It's Druckenmiller.
Which is, certainly not out of the realm of possibility either, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, well, listen, hey, you saw him play. I wouldn't have doubted that he wasn't drunk when he played based on his performance. So,
Yeah. And reason why I say that, and, he was charged in a bar brawl in like 1996.
Oh, no kidding. Dude, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's probably where I got it from, was some writer probably jokingly put his name in an article as Jim Drunkenmiller after that. And so that's okay. Maybe I'm not just an idiot. Maybe I actually read it somewhere. So I'm going to go that route.
but there's a couple other notables. And there's plenty more notables. These are just ones that stick out in my head. Corey Ivy, um, ended up being a pretty good cornerback in the NFL. But the one that really sticks out to me, and this is more of a personal thing, because when I first started really watching a little bit of college football, and I've never been a big college football person, but I remember watching the Seminoles play. And the first time I remember them playing, Casey Weldon was the quarterback. And, because that was in that era where, he ends up almost winning the Heisman. But of course, Desmond Howard is like, amazing. And he ends up winning it. So Weldon's like really close. But then, so Weldon ends up in the XFL over the years. And then, of course, he's obviously been in the NFL as well. But I thought that was cool. Like, it was pretty neat to see him on it, because I'd forgotten. I had to look that up, and it was like, oh, wait a minute, yeah, he really was there, wasn't he? So yeah, he's just one more of a personal thing, because I just remember, when I was a kid, him, one of the first times I can remember knowing a name that wasn't an NFL name. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, hey, I know this college player. Like, I was expanding my horizons.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. I feel like that was the one year that um, I'm trying to think if that was the year that they played Penn State and I watched that.
I could not tell you. It's very possible that I just remember watching them maybe once or twice, and maybe because they were on more national television, because back
Right.
then it wasn't like you had not a whole lot of choices really, for not like you had 17 ESPNs and all these different college sports networks. So
You mean there was no ESPN 8, the Ocho?
no, nor were there was no Office Sports Network. That's
Oh. I forgot about that. I like that.
it's a callback to Terry Tate fans out there.
Yes. Harry Tate, office linebacker.
Did you anyone else like of note, like NFL or otherwise? Do you recall in the first version of the XFL?
No, and I'll be honest, man. Like, I remember watching the first game, and after it didn't really catch my interest, I just kind of, it was background noise to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was working at Dick's Sporting Goods, so I was watching ESPN all the time. And I know I caught some glimpses here and there, but it wasn't anything that I really paid too much attention to. And then I went to basic training that year, so I missed, a good portion of any of it. So,
Right.
uh,
Yeah. No, I don't have much more on it either. I do think it was cool that initially they had a pregame show very early on with Opie and Anthony, who you and I were both big fans of at the time. And then they did have some interesting broadcasters with Jesse Ventura and Jim Ross of wrestling fame, and then they brought in Mike Adamle.
oh God,
Yeah, well, Mike Adamle of American Gladiators fame, and then just general sports, and obviously of his
we're gonna
sensational run on.
we're
Yeah,
gonna ignore his wrestling career.
yeah. But then also Matt Vasgersian, who I know that name has to resonate with some people, because especially if you know any sports video games, he's used a lot.
I was gonna say, dude, honestly, the only thing I can place Matt Vasgersian from was those. It was before it was MLB The Show, the Sony baseball game. I remember the commercials and him being one of the announcers. I can't remember what the heck it was called.
Yeah, he's to me, he's most well known for that. And then Dick Buckus was a broadcaster too. He's always a fun one. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then guess what? Fast forward, after that folded, it didn't last but 1 year. We had a reboot in the worst possible year.
Yes. So obviously, like anything in 2020 that was supposed to be good, it got ruined. And what's sad is it actually, between that and the All-American Football League, it was a good year for football until, COVID killed everything,
Yeah.
because both of the leagues were actually doing fairly well, and they were actually putting on decent football. But with COVID and everything else, they folded because there was no money coming in and they didn't have any way to support their product anymore. Now, according to Jonathan Coachman, Vince did his XFL people extremely dirty. Left a lot of them unpaid. He still apparently owes Coach money. And there's, which you hate to see, not only because these people deserve to be paid for their money or, for their work, but WWE also in the midst of all of this, Vince made record profits in 2020, despite cutting, I don't remember how many people, but we've discussed all of the people who were cut by WWE and all of the stuff and how they still made record profits. And even if they would have kept all those people, still would have made record profits, but they're not paying people. Vince isn't paying people, even though he's making money hand over fist with WWE.
Yeah, it's a real shame. And no, I completely agree with your assessment on those, the additional football leagues that your XFL 2.0, whatever you want to call it. And it was the All American Football League, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that was the other one. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I watched more of the XFL games than I did the other one, but I did watch both. And yeah, it wasn't the NFL, and certainly not, but it was entertaining. There were good games. There were solid play. It reminded me of watching just some good, solid college football. I can't say that I was necessarily like, oh, I love this guy, and I'm a fan of this team, and I'm going to run out and get this shirt, or that wasn't it. It was just nice to actually have football after like the NFL season was over.
Right. Especially
because,
after the season that, oh, no, that's right. Never mind. I was going to say, especially after the season we watched with the Eagles, but that was the 2020 NFL season.
Right. So, it was nice to have that. And then, of course, like you said, it just got all shut down, and, especially anything starting new, basically to kind of, you have a 2-3 years, however long it takes for you to get it going. And then all of a sudden the brakes are just immediately pumped. And to be profitable, to me, you'd have had to have gone into season 2 or 3 before you started turning anything. And that's if you were successful.
Right.
So yeah, it's a shame. And you listed out some really interesting players here that were in 2.0 of the XFL. You want to go through these?
Yeah. So I've got a list of 5 players here that are kind of names that people may recognize. So we've got Taylor Heineke, which I know I did not pronounce that correctly. Started for Washington. Ryan Fitzpatrick rather was brought in to be the starting quarterback, but he got hurt. So Taylor has taken over. And so, you've got a former starting quarterback in the XFL, now starting quarterback for an NFL team. Along those same lines, we've got PJ Walker, who's a Temple grad. He's one of 2 former Owls playing in Carolina, which makes sense since Matt Rule, who was both of their coaches at the time with Temple, is now the new coach of the Carolina Panthers. And he was the MVP of the XFL, PJ Walker. He's played very well when he's come in. This is his 2nd season with Carolina. Sam Darnold's down there. Oh my God, did you see his stat line today?
It was pretty darn good.
Yeah. So, I had put in here that, if Darnold doesn't improve this season, he could be replaced. After today's game, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's going to have an extremely long leash, considering his pedigree and everything. But PJ Walker is a former player of Matt Rule, and so I wouldn't put it past him to stay with the team. Same goes for Colin Thompson, who's a tight end. He saw some decent playing time last year. He's a special teamer, and now, again, since Matt Rule's there, he might see some time on the field normally. And Carolina kind of became, I don't want to say they became an XFL team, but they absorbed a lot of players from the XFL, including free safety Kenny Robinson. Again, another special teams player for the most part, played a little bit on defense. But then we get to the one that I'm most interested in because I'm an Eagles fan. And so this is going to be Tyree Jackson. Now, Tyree Jackson was a quarterback in college, and he was a quarterback in the XFL. And the Eagles signed him to a futures contract back in January or December, or sometime in the winter, to convert him to tight end. Now, dude's 6'7", gigantic target, soft hands, was really making some noise in the preseason. And then he unfortunately broke a bone in his back. So he's on IR. He's going to come back. I could see him being either a long-term replacement for Zach Ertz, or if they go a different direction and trade Dallas Goedert, who's looking for a new contract as well, I could see him being a replacement for Goedert. I'm bullish on him, but at the same time, I'm also a little bit worried that, I want to see what he can do since he got hurt before we could see him in real game action.
Right. No, I agree. And being that tall, athletic, just, man, could it be like the next Antonio Gates?
And you know who I thought initially when I saw him play, when I saw his stature and everything, was Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Another one. Yeah. That's no, I'm excited too. I'm hoping that as much as I love Zach Ertz, I would really like to hang on to Dallas Goedert. So
yeah. Part of me says keep Ertz to mentor Tyree Jackson. You've got Jack Stoll on the roster as well, but Dallas Goedert I think has more long-term value to the team than Zach Ertz at this point. And as much as I want to see him retire an Eagle, I don't know if it's worth mortgaging the future, so to speak, by keeping Ertz and getting rid of Goedert in hopes that Tyree Jackson turns into the next superstar tight end.
Exactly. All right. So we've gone through version 1. We've gone through version 2. Neither of those lasted. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and I thought whenever COVID hit, I thought the XFL was finally in the ground, in a coffin, never to be seen or heard from again. But guess what? We're back again. And guess who owns back?
It? That would be one. I don't know if anybody's heard of him. This is probably an obscure reference, that our wrestling fans will get and nobody else, which means us. There's this guy named Dwayne Johnson. Apparently, he used to wrestle under the name The Rock. Have you ever heard of him?
Oh, yeah. He was a dude that was in the Nation of Domination, right?
Yeah. He was, when he came out at first, he was the blue chipper, right? And everybody hated him and they chanted "Die, Rocky, die." And then he would join the Nation of Domination. And I don't remember what happened to him after that, though. I think he kind of faded into obscurity, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I think he wrestled on a handful of pay-per-views or something, but I don't think anyone's heard from him since.
Yeah, it's been a while since we heard from good old Rocky.
Wow. So The Rock, yes, that's that Rock, everyone, now owns with a group of investors, not just him. Although he probably could just have bought it with like the money in his back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, the money that he just made off of Jungle Cruise, he could have bought the XFL. But what do we call this one, man? Is it the Dwayne of a new era? That was bad.
Yeah,
that was.
Don't say that. Don't ever say that again.
I feel bad.
You should.
I do. I'm gonna. You know how I'm gonna punish myself?
I don't know, but probably a lot of prayers.
I'm gonna drink a White Claw.
Oh boy!
Gonna make all of my mildest dreams come true.
Yeah, but you had a couple of other ones on here that are just as bad. You want to say those?
Yeah. I mean, we might as well, since we're already going down that road. So, the Rockening, instead of the Reckoning. The Dwayning, which I don't even know where the hell I came up with that one. That was just, it's bad, man. These are all bad.
That sounds like something you'd see on Urban Dictionary.
Dwayning. I'm going to Urban Dictionary right now. I'm going to look this up because I'm sure Dwayning is a thing. Like, and I'm hoping it's not just like somebody saying draining with a speech impediment. Like, you know, um, let's see. Urbandictionary.com. Okay. Dwayning, Mothman King. All right, so I got to read this because it's on here. So the first, so the you know how they have like the word of the day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Mothman kink, and we talked about the Mothman on one of our episodes.
We did.
So the definition is the romantic and or sexual desire for a Mothman or moths in general. People with a Mothman kink love Mothman or moths, even to the point of sexual fantasies.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a
Okay.
thing. Let's look up Dwayning now so that we can move on from this.
Yeah, we segued back into a an old episode, and then it got really weird.
Yeah, see, we have better long-term storytelling than WWE.
That's right.
No, it just comes up with Dwayne. So, Jesus.
So we're gonna have to find a definition.
So, I'm gonna read the first two definitions, and then I'm done with Urban Dictionary forever. So the first one is someone with the male gender, romantic, tall, dark, and handsome, gentleman, hilarious, charming, good dancer, and kisser, pretty much perfect guy. So then we go to the second one, which has a huge penis and usually has a girlfriend with a N and is very attractive.
Oh boy.
I don't know what has a girlfriend with a N. So I'm assuming they mean the name starts with an N.
With a name like Nancy?
I guess. I don't know, man. You know what? I'm done with Urban Dictionary. Urban Dictionary, you're fired. So anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand.
All right. So back on the tracks here. So The Rock with a group of investors bought all the rights to the XFL, as you mentioned here. And you said that they were originally set to return next year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But again, our lovely new friend COVID has decided to push that back until 2023, which is fine. And here's my take on that. You want a good 2, 3, 4, even 5 years of like build up and getting this thing right. Because look what happened before, and I'm not saying that, the second time wasn't necessarily anyone's fault. That is what it is.
Right.
But the first time, like, they tried to strike while the iron was hot. Like you said, they tried too many different things. It didn't work. This third time, let's spend some time and get it right. So I think this is a smart move, regardless of COVID or otherwise. You know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? The thing about The Rock is, he's a lot of things. He is a smart businessman. He doesn't tie himself to things that fail, aside from like the Scorpion King. Even his terrible movies still bring in money because he knows how to market himself, and he's done such a good job building his brand. And everything he touches at least has some kind of popularity, has some kind of good outcome. As I stumble over my words like an idiot, but they have some modicum of success because he's very methodical about what he does. And so for him to take over, I'd have to imagine that it's going to be at least a watchable, if not enjoyable league. And I'm glad he's got the time to work on it. Like you said, good. Give him more time, because the more time he spends working on this and getting it set up and doing all the grunt work on it, the better it's going to turn out in the end.
Oh yeah, look at and like you said it too. I think his ability to cross connect and brand. Perfect example is his work with Under Armour, and look at the branding there. Like, no one else outside of Michael Jordan are selling their little branded logo on T-shirts for like $50.
Right.
But he is, and people are buying them like hotcakes. Right. So he's a smart man. He understands a lot of the side, and this to me is the best part about this. You mentioned this, the guy played football for a very prestigious school. He has that experience. He also has a lot of entertainment experience, and I'm not just talking with the movies or whatever, but the XFL's birthplace again was half the WWF, WWE, and well, that's where he kind of made his name. So he's got this well-rounded, like you said, that knowledge about this. I'm really hoping. I really agree. I'm hoping this does something. But you make a great comment though, about this. Look, we tried it once, we tried it twice, third time here. This isn't going to be a competitor, is it?
No, 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 absolutely not. This is going to be a supplement. So one of the things that the other football leagues, part of the reason that they've played in the spring, in the late winter and spring, is because they didn't want to be seen as competition. NFL basically has a monopoly on professional football in the fall, and they know that. And so, number one, they don't want to piss off the NFL because you don't want to piss off the behemoth, right? They're not trying, the XFL, the AAF, or the AAF, they weren't trying to be direct competitors. They weren't trying to, um, you know, be the big man on the block. They were just trying to be a supplement. They're basically, if you look at it through a baseball lens, they're essentially a minor league. They're, if you look at basketball, they're the D League. They're the developmental league. So these guys, what these leagues were trying to do is come in and be supplemental, be something additional that fans could watch, that could hold them over until training camp started. And, it picked up after the Super Bowl, and it was supposed to run until, when was it supposed to run? Until May, April or May.
Yeah, something like that.
And, so some of them, part of the reason why they were using, that time frame was because that's when the football stadiums were empty as well. Let's not look past that. Not
Right.
only not only were they not trying to be a direct competitor, they knew that nobody's, they're not going to hold up a city like an NFL team to build a stadium. You know, nobody's building the trying to remember, who was it? The Tampa Bay, what were they? The Tampa Bay Venom or Tampa Bay Cobras or whatever the hell they were. Nobody's building them a stadium, you know. So they've got to use existing infrastructure. So it would behoove them to not piss off the NFL in hopes that maybe they could possibly use their stadium.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot that goes into it. But it's definitely not competition for the NFL. What it is something that could down the line end up helping them. And honestly, the XFL, I could see a point if it's run the way that I think The Rock is going to run it. It's going to end up in 5 years' time, very likely forming some kind of official affiliation with the NFL. That's my prediction. If it goes well, people are into it, and it gets run the right way, it could be a legitimate developmental league for the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because that's what the NFL really lacks. I mean, yeah, look, their semi-professional football has existed for decades. We all know somebody that's played semi-pro football for some regional or city team or whatever. These are the type of things. However, they're not true developmentals. They're not true minor systems like baseball has, or the NBA, or even hockey.
Right.
The NFL truly lacks this. Yeah, they have practice squads, and there's these different things that they have. And but truth be told, a lot of players' careers for Americanized football stop at college. The people that actually make it to play college football generally do not play that level of football ever again.
Right.
And so for there to be an existent league that you say, and I completely agree, is supplementary to the NFL, I just hope it lasts. I really do. Because it's one of those things they've tried over and over again. One of these days we'll have to get into maybe a conversation about the USFL, even though that was kind of prior to our time. But
Right.
I think it'd be a fun history lesson. And some of these other things, the Arena Football League, I think, be another one that we can talk about. But to have a true supplement that's actually played like the NFL is, yeah, we need it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you could look. So yeah, there's the Canadian Football League, but honestly, I mean, even with that, how many players from the Canadian Football League come to the NFL and actually have any kind of real success? Like, I can name a couple, but it's not like happening every year. It's not like teams are sending scouts up to the CFL and finding this hotbed of talent. Um, so, I mean, Alex Singleton from the Eagles did it, but I couldn't tell you the last player besides him that came from the CFL and had any kind of success.
Well, and here's the thing too. Even if there is a flux of people coming from the CFL, which we obviously both know that there isn't. Yeah, there probably are for like maybe, and I hate to be like this, but this is just the truth. Practice squad guys or the occasional, second or third stringer comes in, those type of guys. No one in America is sitting here religiously watching Canadian football.
Yeah,
They're not,
I mean,
and so to have a extra league that's not during the NFL season, uh, yeah, I just really hope this goes. We need it.
yeah, I mean, I know that I've seen it on TV before, but I couldn't tell you where to watch it or when the Grey Cup happens or any of that stuff.
Yeah, no,
I
one
mean,
hundred
I mean,
percent.
and honestly, let's be real. You and I know that their trophy's called the Grey Cup because we're friggin' nerds. Who else? Like, if you asked 100 people, 100 American football fans, if they knew what Canada's football championship was, how many of them do you think would know?
Yeah, no, I mean that's it. You know, Look, I'm glad it exists. It
Yeah,
gives more people a chance to play. But and here's the thing too. It's not like even in this day and age with all the streaming services and stuff, I have a lot of the popular ones. It's not like I'm turning it on and being like, you know what? I'm just gonna throw on some CFL today.
watch. Listen, I'm gonna watch some CFL and I'm gonna watch some curling.
Yeah, it doesn't happen,
No,
you know.
and I enjoy curling for the record,
Yeah,
but
and I
I don't.
enjoy football, but just not the
Yeah.
CFL.
Well, I think on that note, before we offend any more of our Canadian listeners or friends, maybe we should cut it off.
Yeah, yeah. There's we just upset like. Do we have any Canadian listeners? No.
I don't think so, but I mean, I would welcome our Canadian friends to listen and enjoy and see what the noise is all about. See what I did there? Playing to the demographic.
All right, man. It's been fun.
That it has. We have been the Noise Brigade. Until next time, have a good one.
Later on.